It's my baby and I want to marry it. I want to call it Squishy and it'll be my Squishy.
Welcome to SinCast, presented by CinemaSins.
All right, guys, welcome to the SinCast. This is Chris Atkinson from CinemaSins, joined as always by Jeremy Scott, the voice of CinemaSins.
Hello there.
And from Barrett Scher, the voice of Music Video Sins.
Hi.
Actually, he's just from Music Video Sins. He's not the voice. Jeremy's also the voice of Music Video Sins.
Hello.
Yeah, there you go. And today we're going to continue the series of Best of the Years We've Been Alive, and today it's 1990.
I made my family disappear.
I'll take the fucking hole. I don't give a fuck. Was the first hole I dug?
The operation was called hobbling.
Look at the same shit happen to the same guy twice.
Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
Woohoo! God damn it, guys, I miss the 90s so much.
I know.
I miss the 90s so much you don't even understand it. It was the last best decade, right?
Now we're here.
Everybody says that about whatever decade they were 15.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's just a combination of youth and like everything back then was more awesomer than anything.
Yeah.
Even though there was a lot of shitty things that happened in the 90s. But good God, do I miss the 90s?
Yeah, me too.
Anyway, what's the first thing that stands out in 1990? I'm going to say Goodfellas is the first thing that stands out to me in 1990. One of Martin Scorsese's best, probably his best in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree.
And it's just endlessly entertaining and watch it anytime. It's one of the best movies of all time, I think. So
I would agree.
It's really good.
Yeah. It's hard to not go there first if we're going to talk about this year. But second, obviously, has to be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Right, right.
OG TMNT.
You say the 90s are great, and I think part of what made them great is we were totally clueless as to what was shit. Like, I loved this movie.
Yeah.
I loved the Turtles. I watched this thing dozens of times. I quoted it like crazy, and it's terrible.
And then what's weird about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for me is that I was not aware of the comics that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were sort of spoofing at the time, like Daredevil and all that, because Daredevil's got the hand, so Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles called theirs the foot,
right.
And there's a sensei named Stick, but they called theirs Splinter, and stuff like that. And so like I was way more familiar with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles before Daredevil had its Netflix thing,
right.
And watching the Netflix thing, and now I'm laughing at the Daredevil stuff because it's so like like, oh, they call him Stick, huh? Just like Splinter? No, it's the other way around.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about Daredevil at the time. I barely knew anything about the Turtles, just that it was some kind of cult comic that some people liked, and here are these kooky guys cracking jokes, and Corey Feldman's one of them, and I was on board all the way. Absolutely
perfect for the age that we were in.
Yeah, totally.
I was 13 when Mutant Ninja Turtles came out, and I was all about it. Speaking of another movie that you're great with when you're 13, but probably you're great with now is Home Alone.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Home Alone is a holiday classic. Macaulay Culkin, we thought he was going to go on to great things after that, right?
Now he's in bands that have to do with pizza.
Yeah.
That's
What
his
is
thing.
the deal with that? Yeah, and he somehow dated Mila Kunis. How did that happen? I'm not judging her. I just want to know how that meeting happened.
Be a fly on the wall.
Yeah, exactly.
I think she was like 18 when they started dating.
Yeah.
She was really young, and he was still a huge star, even though Home Alone was really his only big hits. I love that Seinfeld when George is watching Home Alone and Jerry comes into his apartment and goes, "What are you crying?" And George goes, "The old man got to me." Yeah, I love Home Alone. I even enjoy the second one. I don't think it's as good.
Yeah.
But I mean, how can you go wrong with basically a kid version of Die Hard?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Essentially. And I watch it probably every Christmas season.
He abuses the shit out of those robbers.
He sure does.
He absolutely it really kind of, upon like the 10th viewing, makes you kind of root for Daniel Stern and Joe Pesci.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You just kind of start thinking like, God, man, I mean, this is awful.
Yeah.
I showed it to my son, a couple years ago. He's 8 now. And he was cracking up at how vicious and awful these people are. And it's not like they're murderers. It's not like they're like molesters or anything like that. They're robbers and they're bad people, but he just abuses the shit out of them.
Yeah, and can you think of 2 movies that an actor shares, like Joe Pesci with Goodfellas and Home Alone, that is more diametrically opposed than those 2?
That's a good point.
It's good casting.
Yeah, absolutely. Another one that stands out in 1990 and is actually apropos because Gary Marshall just passed away yesterday.
Yeah.
As this recording was being made. Pretty Woman.
Yeah.
Probably his biggest, most well-known movie, and that's what got Julia Roberts into the stratosphere.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And my wife adores that movie.
Yeah, and it's not very good.
I don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's kind of dated a little bit, but I still think it has a big audience.
No, it certainly does.
It's a very 80s movie. In 1990,
right.
I mean, it's the whole like greed and like corporate takeover and everything, and Jason Alexander being like representing the worst of America, and Richard Gere doing the same thing. So like, but it is definitely a remnant of the 80s that trickles into the beginning of the next decade.
And let's don't get it twisted. 1990 is still basically the 80s.
Yeah, with the hair, the fashion, the comedy, the movies, everything.
Yeah, we don't get into the 90s really until it's like 93, 94. And all that. Another huge movie. This won Best Picture was Dances with Wolves. Kevin Costner directing himself for 3 hours, and great movie.
Well, this was his first directing gig too, right?
Yeah,
I'm pretty
it was.
sure he won the Best Director Oscar.
He did.
I adore this movie so much. It has movements. It feels like a novel or a big piece of orchestral music. The way that the story flows so lyrically, and I can't not watch it. This is on that list of, if Dances with Wolves is on, I have to stop on that channel.
It was on just yesterday.
Yeah,
I was sitting there watching it, just like it's just compulsively watchable. It's rare for modern epic movies like that to be something where you're like, all right, I gotta sit here and watch this. Like a lot of modern epic movies, you're like, oh, we're at the 1 hour and a half mark, huh? This got 30 minutes of horribleness before we get to the good stuff. But Dances with Wolves is like always good.
So that won Best Picture. Should it have won Best Picture that year?
This is one I'm not going to argue against. I'm okay with this winning Best Picture.
Even with Goodfellas?
I mean, I don't want to tip my hand for the debate that's to come, but Goodfellas can also be called that.
I don't have a problem with this movie winning Best Picture. I think, though, the Academy sort of put themselves in this position, not that they were trying to put themselves in this position, but they were always going for those epic movies.
Yeah.
Dances with Wolves sort of won. It would have won by default, even if it wasn't like as good as it was, I feel like, because it just like all through the 80s, they set this precedent. Like if your movie's 2.5 hours long and it has like a decent performance in it, it's Best Picture. You know?
But doesn't that describe Goodfellas though?
No. Goodfellas, actually, I was only 13 when Goodfellas came out. I just remember that being it was not considered the classic that it ended up being until later. I think there were some people who didn't like Goodfellas when it first came out.
Well, also, is that the kind of movie the Academy is going to award Best Picture? Like, how often do you see a movie with 300 F-bombs and all that blood and violence?
All that violence.
I don't know, maybe today.
Maybe today.
No, I mean, even then, it's not really those aren't winning Best Picture. I don't think Goodfellas fits the mold of a Best Picture, quote unquote, and that sort of leads into what defines a Best Picture, what should be a Best Picture. Like, I mean, we're going to go through this decade, and there are so many movies that are better than the Best Picture.
Yeah.
But none of those movies really qualifies as what had been a Best Picture before. Academy is a very traditional body.
They set a template, I guess, at that point.
Yeah,
right?
they've set a template. So, yeah, your movies that are coming, there's a lot of stuff coming out in the 90s. We'll get into those, but that are better than the ones that won. But the epic always wins. It always wins. So I don't have a problem with Dances with Wolves winning. And in this case, I don't have a problem with it overall winning. I think it's a great enough movie to be Best Picture. But then later on in the decade, we're going to start seeing some stuff that's like, nah, that was an epic, but it wasn't the best.
Well, I'm going to do a little bit of a loopy segue here and say you're sort of hinting at the Shakespeare in Love debacle, at least a little bit.
There's that.
That's one of the more infamous won Best Picture but shouldn't have.
Right.
But that was Tom Stoppard. Tom Stoppard put out a movie in 1990 called Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead.
Yes.
And if you've never seen it, please go watch it. It's got Tim Roth and Gary Oldman. It's just a bunch of fun wordplay and kooky, quirky humor. Basically, we're following two side characters from the play Hamlet. And we'll see characters from Hamlet come through this story every now and then. But we're following these two guys. If you don't know Hamlet, at the end, he sends his two friends, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, with a message that actually says, kill these two guys.
Spoiler
for Hamlet, something that's centuries old. And so this movie says, hey, let's look at this story from their perspective. How stupid do they have to be to fall for this? And they're actually so stupid they're quite smart.
Yeah.
And when I discovered this movie, I already knew who Tim Roth was from Tarantino stuff. I knew who Gary Oldman was, but I was not expecting this gem. I love this movie.
It's so good. It's so hyper literate, but yet broad comedy at the same time. Yeah. There's a bit where he's flipping a coin over and over and over again and trying to get like a different outcome.
Yeah.
And that speaks to kind of how the universe that they're in works, because it's not necessarily a linear universe.
Right.
But it keeps coming up heads, and it's just heads.
There's a part where he goes to the top of the balcony in the gym with like a cannonball and a feather and drops them both at the same time.
It's like, I just proved gravity.
It's like dancing around all these big heady issues in the goofiest way possible. It's probably not going to win, but I can't not talk about it. I love that movie.
Gary Oldman just sells his most naive performance, which is totally un-Gary Oldman-ish.
Right.
He is terrific in that.
Yeah, he's great. Another one that I love from this year is Hunt for Red October.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
This is probably in my top 5 movies of all time.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot say a single negative thing about it. If you want to talk to me about Sean Connery having a weird accent as a Russian, I don't care. It's like Arnold. I accept Sean Connery's Scottish accent in anything I see him in. And I just love it. It's so fantastic. There's no flaws. And even more than Dances with Wolves. If I was flipping channels and Hunt for Red October was playing on one and Dances with Wolves was on the other, Hunt for Red October wins.
So tense. Such a tense movie, and it might be the last of the Cold War movies.
At least the good ones.
Because the wall comes down, I believe, in 89. I think that's what it is. And then the so-called fall of communism and all that is symbolized by that. But we started seeing less and less Russians being the bad guys. Like the 80s, that's what it was all about.
Yep, always.
Red heat. That's why you have a movie like that.
Ruskies.
Yeah. But Hunt for October is so tense, and it's got I guess a star-making performance for Alec Baldwin, who's super young in that movie. You want to talk about somebody who has completely changed from what he looked like back then. But star-making performance for that. But he didn't play Jack Ryan in the next installments.
Right.
You know, that's he kind of let that go after that and let Harrison Ford do it in the next couple of movies. But yeah, Hunt for October is just one of those movies. It's just like everything about it is sets a tone, or it's just I love how he's like he'll sit there, he's at the meeting and he's like, son of a bitch.
Yeah.
And he's like Raimi has plans to defect and all this and everything, and like James Earl Jones is like, I told you to make an impression, Jack, but Jesus, you know, and so this guy, you know, is the guy he's the only guy who knows this is going to happen or believes it's going to happen. And that, you know, that one guy's like, I'm a politician, which means I'm a liar, I'm a cheat, and I'm a liar. When I'm not kissing babies, I'm stealing the lollipop. You know, and he basically uses the expendable bald one to go and do this insane stunt to get onto a submarine that's near the Red October.
It's smart though. It's a
It's
smart
so
action
smart.
movie.
Yeah.
And it can't be that hard to be done.
No.
Like you can point to this and say it's possible to do a smart action movie.
Yeah. And by the way, go ahead.
I was going to say, who's the director here? Is it McTiernan?
McTiernan.
Yeah, I was going to say McTiernan always makes great action
I
films.
was about to say that McTiernan is on a roll here. Die Hard and Hunt for October. That's 1-2 you cannot top.
Yep.
So incredible. If you haven't seen Hunt for October, you need to see that.
Yeah, for sure.
Another one that stands out is Tim Burton, who's on a roll too. Like I think he's lost a lot of his luster over the past 15 years or so. But Edward Scissorhands is one of his very best movies. And you're talking about visuals and story and just quirkiness and all that. You got Johnny Depp and Winona Ryder. It's just a fantastic movie.
It is, and it's emotional. Like that's what these recent movies haven't touched, at least to this point, probably since like Big Fish, where he hasn't really gotten to the heart of the picture like he does in Edward Scissorhands. Because it's in this weird universe and it's got all the stylistic and visual cues and everything. But, it really turns out to be a love story and kind of just like a really nice narrative with a strong heart. So it's great.
Yeah.
Pretty good year for quirky love stories because Joe versus the Volcano came out this year.
Yeah.
Which is one of the lesser seen Meg Ryan, Tom Hanks movies.
Yeah.
And they're both super young, and this movie is not a straight-up comedy.
No.
This movie wants to make you laugh by making you think, not by giving you slapstick. I love the movie. I think it's full of symbolism, and it's just goofy fun.
Wasn't it super critically derided for a
Absolutely.
number of years?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like it was one of the worst films, quote, ever made for a while.
I don't know if people were calling it worst, but they certainly didn't like it. And I don't think it really got appreciation until they did Sleepless in Seattle together. And it started building, it's built quite a cult following since. Like you mentioned Joe versus the Volcano to anybody of age, they're like, oh yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah.
And which is something that you could not find back in 1990.
No,
really.
in fact, I was somebody in college showed me that movie, and I'd never even heard of it. So, I mean, it flew pretty well below the radar, especially in a year like this with all these big blockbusters. But I love Tom Hanks, so I wanted to mention it.
Yeah. Another big one, Paul Verhoeven comes back with Total Recall. Another pretty good 1-2 punch there. He does RoboCop, and then he does Total Recall here. Very Hitchcockian sci-fi thriller with
Philip
K. Dick.
Yeah.
Philip K. Dick. Short story. What is it? We sell it to you we'll sell it to you for your wholesale. What is it called?
I don't. All of his
It
titles
wasn't called
are weird.
Total Recall.
No, it wasn't.
But Total Recall it was a different movie. Well, I don't know. For Schwarzenegger, he had done sci-fi, obviously, but I don't think he had done anything that was this cerebral before.
No, and I don't know if he knew he was doing that kind of thing.
He probably not. But
It was kind of like Casper Van Dien in Starship Troopers, probably just kind of along for the ride.
Yeah. Based on we can remember it for you wholesale. Now it is kind of hard to believe that I'm talking about a Schwarzenegger film and saying cerebral at the same time, but it is. It's one of those that makes you go like, is this real? Is this not? Okay, what's going on? I don't understand. I mean, and by the end of it, you're still not entirely sure, even though I think it kind of spells it out, but it's endlessly watchable. I love Total Recall.
It holds up really well.
Yeah.
A lot of sci-fi from this era does because it's set on Mars or what have you, and I don't have anything to compare
Get
that
your
against.
ass to Mars.
But even the stuff on Earth, the TV screens and all that, none of it feels dated. And young Sharon Stone, lots of guessing and twisting, and I can't not watch it.
Yeah, and this is one of the quickest remakes I've ever seen come out. Like it feels like this was remade way before remakes are made. But I mean, maybe I'm wrong on that. They do it with Colin Farrell, and like I just felt like we just don't need this at all. This is the most we don't need this I've ever seen.
Well, and that was a 1-2 punch of the RoboCop remake,
Yeah.
and the Total Recall remake, and they're both just sterile and unemotional and muted colors, and neither one of them needed to be made.
No.
The originals in both cases hold up fine.
Yeah.
Speaking of departures for Arnold Schwarzenegger, he also did Kindergarten Cop that year. And I saw this movie in the theater, and I this was a big year. This was probably the first year that I really went to see a lot of movies in the theater. And I saw movies like Problem Child that came out in this year, and Arachnophobia, and Kindergarten Cop. And Kindergarten Cop is him trying to play off of his macho action star thing that I guess he'll continue in like Last Action Hero and other things. But you saw like a different side. I don't know. This came before Stallone doing "Stop or My Mom Will Shoot."
Yeah,
right?
but he'd also
but there was like a run of
had
these
also
types of
done
things.
Twins before that.
Yeah, he did Twins before that. Yeah, but it was a fun movie. It was you got to see Schwarzenegger yell "Shut up" at a bunch of kindergartners at the top of his voice, and that was fun.
Yeah, well, and let's not forget the enduring line, "It is not a tumor."
It's not a tumor.
That tumor. It is not a tumor. It is not a tumor. That was all the way through. Like you couldn't escape a decade after that.
What's funny is we were just talking last time about movie quotes we say all the time in real life, and I always use the line right before that. Like if my wife doesn't feel good or has a headache, I'm always like, "It might be a tumor." She's not a fan.
Let's see. Die Hard 2 came out in 1990. Now, this is one that I think almost everybody hated when it came out, but it has developed a cult following over the years, and it's better than I remember when I first watched it.
When it first came out, and it may have dropped it since, did it actually say "Die Harder"? Was that the tagline?
I remember "Die Harder" being a part of the title.
That's classic.
Now, it could be that they were doing that in ads, and they never made that a part of the official title. But I remember Die Harder, and then I remember when Die Hard 3 was coming out, I was like, everybody was like, "Are they going to call that Die Hardest?" You know?
I had never seen this. I'd seen the original, and I was in college, and I got the flu, and somebody went out to the video store and rented me some movies, and Die Hard 2 was one of them, and I was holed up in my room in a blanket with a fever, and I watched this movie, and I was like, "This is great." What did everybody say?
It's the perfect time to watch this movie.
So that may color my, like, the state I was in may have like fogged me up a little bit and made me love it, but it's not as good as the original, but like you said when we talked about the original, it's still a confined space, still the same basic premise, still good performances all around. Dennis Franz is in this, and he's fantastic. I like it.
I will say,
he's a giant asshole.
Yeah, he is.
He is a giant asshole in this movie.
But I will say that every time he's on there, and especially with McClane, dialogue hits all-time new lows when they're talking in there.
Yeah.
Especially like what happens if you go through the metal detector? What makes the metal detector go off first? The shit in your brains or the lead in your ass?
Yeah.
It's got a lot of stuff like that.
It does, and I'm not saying it's perfect.
The dialogue in it is very much like, let's be as Neanderthal about this as possible, but I love the action in it, and I think it's a fun action movie. So,
a film I want to mention that won't be in contention is La Femme Nikita.
Yes.
Because this is what gets Luc Besson on the scene to make The Professional, Leon, and then The Fifth Element after that, two movies that I cherish in my collection. The Professional is one of the best movies I've ever seen.
Yep.
La Femme Nikita is great, too. Now they remade it in English.
Point of No Return.
With Luc Besson involved.
But I think John Badham directed it or somebody like that.
And it's not as good, I don't think.
No,
I'd rather
but
watch the original.
I did see Point of No Return first, and then I saw La Femme Nikita after that, and I still like La Femme Nikita better.
Yeah.
It's just it's a better movie. But yeah, that's a really good one. What else?
Misery.
Oh yeah.
Not like too many other movies out there. Like basically a single set location and two characters the entire film for the most part. And one of the most cheerily menacing villains ever.
Yes.
Kathy Bates kills this role. I've never read the book. I don't read a lot of Stephen King books.
I did read this.
But is this a good adaptation of that book?
Absolutely. I read the book, and the movie is extreme. I mean, there's not much to screw up, really. You know, it's the only thing about, I don't remember the movie that much, but I remember the book having a really, the book had a an extra story written into it because like Paul Sheldon's writing another book in there. That's what Annie wants him to do and everything. And you get to see this story that he's writing and everything. And one of the interesting things is just how because the character that she wants to come back is dead, and he wanted to just, he wanted to leave this character forever as the author or whatever. And just seeing how he's like, oh, well, there's certain kinds of bee stings that make people, like appear dead, but they're not really, and everything. And he's like, oh, I'm kind of getting excited about writing this and everything. But I don't know if the movie really captures that, but the movie's really good. And again, it's fucking Rob Reiner, who is, the guy can do no wrong until 1994. And it's just
genre hopping like a madman.
Yeah,
romantic comedy, Stand By Me, Misery. He's all over the place.
This guy, he's going to have one more that we're going to mention in the next couple of years, but and then he finally crashes down to earth. But Misery's good. I remember in middle school, me and a friend did a scene from Misery in front of the class. What? And I was playing Annie Wilkes. And he was playing Paul Sheldon and brought an actual axe into the middle school. Oh my God. Didn't have any clue that might be a bad thing. And like, we did the scene where we break his leg.
Hobbled him.
Yeah, hobbled him and all that. The teacher had no idea I had this axe. And like, so we did this thing. Everybody was like shocked when they saw it or whatever. And like, we did the scene, no big deal. We didn't think it was a big deal. And then like afterwards we got like pulled aside like, yeah, you shouldn't have brought an axe into school.
If that happened today,
oh my God,
it would be on film.
Oh yeah.
Somebody in the class would have recorded it and I'd be able to see that.
Yeah.
But because it happened back then, I can't watch it.
It's just legend now.
I can only picture it in my mind.
My God.
I want to talk about Presumed Innocent.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Harrison Ford, in a non-conventional role for him.
Yeah.
I really don't want to say, this is one of those weird movies, I really don't want to say too much about it.
Yeah, there is a mystery involved in this one.
And it's important. I don't think you can enjoy the film if we ruin the mystery for you.
No. But this is one of Harrison Ford's great performances. He's only been nominated one time in his life, and I felt like this is one that he could have easily been nominated for. But this is a great mystery. This is based on a huge book by Scott Turow. But it's just one of those that you're like kind of just going, what happened in this? I can't figure it out. And then the answer is so satisfying.
This is also the year that the House Party series kicked off.
Yep.
Kid and Play.
Yep.
The iconic hair and the iconic dance.
And that's really all I need to say about that.
That's about it.
All you need to say.
So two big summer movies that came out were Dick Tracy, which I loved at the time. And when I go back and watch it, I love Al Pacino's performance maybe more than any other Al Pacino performance.
He's so fun in that movie.
Yeah.
It's one of those times where he just went for it. And I hate to say that about an actor of his stature, but in most cases, he's a reserved. I know he's known for, explosive dialogue, like, you had all the weapons or whatever, but like it's just a loopy. I'm surprised he even took the gig.
Yeah. No, and it's very cartoony, and he not only with the makeup, but just his deliveries and everything. Like he'll say just a stupid line, when he's killing somebody, and he'll attribute it to like Benjamin Franklin or like Thomas Jefferson. And no, he's really, really great. And Warren Beatty grounds it, and then Madonna comes in and does Madonna shit, and it's pretty good.
This was Warren Beatty Madonna dating.
Oh yeah,
that was a crazy couple right there. Oh my God. Insanity. I don't think you could between those two. Don't you have 6 degrees of separation for everybody as far as sexual partners are concerned?
I think all three of us do. Actually,
yeah, probably
we're
so.
linked back to Warren Beatty.
Easily.
Well, the other big summer movie, and I want to get your thought on it. Back to the Future 3. Where do you stand on Back to the Future 3?
It is the second best Back to the Future. It gets back to sort of the principles of that first one, and it's not a complete retread like the second one was, even though the second one tries to get like all future-y to us and everything. But Back to the Future 3, is just an excellent movie on its own. It's
I like it. I think I actually like Back to the Future 2 a little more. I think I like them in the order they were released. But I can't find too much fault with it. It's a fun, light adventure. It's maybe even breezier than the first one.
Yeah.
In terms of like the stakes and what have you. And of course, I love all the Eastwood ravine stuff where he tells him his name is Clint Eastwood when he goes back, so they named the ravine after him.
I do like Doc Brown talking about you're not thinking fourth dimensionally and all that. That's a sort of a huge thing to tell an audience when you're watching a movie like this. To not imagine what it is now, but to imagine what it is back then and stuff like that. And I thought that was just a nice touch too. Yeah. And it makes the whole movie good. But no, I like that movie a lot. The Coen brothers came out with Miller's Crossing in this year. Another great Coen brothers movie. This got completely overlooked when it came out though.
Gabriel Byrne?
Gabriel Byrne.
It's like a old timey family mob squabble, right?
Yeah, and Albert Finney's in it, and John Turturro, a lot of good people in it. But it may have gotten covered up by the fact that there were so many gangster movies that came out this year. The Craze, Goodfellas, Godfather 3, which we haven't mentioned yet, but that's another one that just. That was made for $1, and it shows. It shows.
Buy 2 get 1 free.
Right? Yeah, pretty much. Duvall's not in it. There's it's just a weird movie because, and I've talked about this before. Godfather 3 comes out in 1990, some 16 years after the last Godfather came out. Movies have changed so much by this point that it just doesn't even belong in that series at all.
It's funny that you talk about how many mob movies there were this year and Godfather 3 coming out, but we also have The Freshman with Marlon Brando,
which is a great movie.
And that's a comedy, but it's Brando almost aping his Godfather character a bit. It's about this supper club where they import illegal animals like bearded dragons and shit, and they eat these weird foreign animals, and Matthew Broderick is sort of about to marry into this family, and I enjoy that movie a lot. I don't know that I would call it a classic or anything, but it's funny that it came out the same year.
Yeah, so good though. Yeah. Days of Thunder. This is Tony Scott at his most ridiculous, and this is Tom Cruise at his most ridiculous. This is where he meets Nicole Kidman, and the whole almost 10 years of marriage happens after this movie. But yeah, Days of Thunder basically informs what we see in Talladega Nights later on.
Cold Trickle.
Yeah, that's right.
We also get, just because they're going to remake it, I'm going to mention Flatliners.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think they're remaking it with Kiefer Sutherland. Anyway, I don't know that this movie is great. It's about people basically intentionally killing themselves for a few minutes and then being revived by their medical peers, med students. But that little red-hooded kid that they see is one of the creepiest movie characters I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah, there's some creepy stuff in there.
He scared the shit out of me, that little kid.
This is an interesting period of Joel Schumacher. He has come out with good movies. Like, we like to bag on him for Batman Forever and Batman and Robin and all that. And he's made a lot of bad movies. I'm not going to be an apologist for Joel Schumacher here, but Flatliners is a pretty good movie. I don't like The Lost Boys, but The Lost Boys came out a few years before this. A lot of people like that movie. And then he comes out with something a few years down the road called Falling Down, which I think is his best movie. But he's in an interesting little period here where he's making some good stuff, and this is why he had, that's why he got Batman, was that he was able to make some pretty interesting things.
No, this is a great cast.
Yeah, it is. The let's see, what else? Here's a nice little B movie that has had 7 sequels, I think. Tremors.
It's one of those movies that, I mean, this is why we have Sharknado today. But I prefer the Tremors version of this kind of movie to the Sharknado version.
Yes.
Something that sort of knows, at least the Tremors sequels, they know for sure. I'm pretty sure the first one, they knew they were bad and they were making something goofy and cheesy. And they just ran with Michael Gross has had an entire second life as an actor after Family Ties just because of these movies.
Yep.
And he's playing the exact opposite of the guy from Family Ties. Like he's playing like a gun-loving, explosive-loving...
with Reba McEntire.
Yeah, and then, of course, this series does what Back to the Future does and takes us back to the Old West and shows us all these ancestors fighting. Anyway, I love the first Tremors. I don't think it's good, but I sure do like watching it.
Oh, it's such a fun movie. But we don't have to really talk much about it. Just a casual mention of Gremlins 2, the new batch, which was not good at all.
No.
I think that was another movie in my younger days that I came out going, that wasn't very good. They were making fun of the first movie in this one, basically saying, well, that first one that you liked was ridiculous. So here's a bunch of... And Key and Peele has one of the best skits on this movie ever. I suggest you go find it. But yeah, I remember I was sitting there thinking, because I probably mentioned this before, but there's that scene where the gremlins get in the projection room and they burn and the film burns and all that. I'm wondering how many projectionists shat themselves when they were watching this movie, and because with a trained eye you can tell that it's not really the film. But I wonder how many. I mean, I'm sure there were a few that were like, "Oh no!"
Well, because if you do projection long enough and you're previewing a film Thursday night before opening, you're really trying to look out for mistakes. You're watching it in a I guess a more aware way. You're watching for the cigarette burn marks. You're watching for splices that are bad or scratches, and so anything like that would show up would probably freak you out.
Yeah,
give you a moment of panic.
Yeah, that's a little. By the way, that's a little trick that they can't do today.
Right.
Like you can't. Emulate film burning on screen because everything's digital. It would be ridiculous to put that in your digital movie.
It would.
I do have a good head trip movie that is, I think, probably underrated at this point. It's Jacob's Ladder.
Oh yeah, I have that on my list.
That is a lot of fun for a psychological thriller, but it's also, talk about some creepy imagery in there.
Yeah.
There is some absolutely crazy stuff in there, and all of his visions. He's a guy that comes back from the Vietnam War. It's Tim Robbins. He doesn't know really which end is up, and you find out at the end of the movie which end is kind of up, maybe. Yeah. And it's a great movie to watch. It's a really good Sunday afternoon movie, I think.
I think we're ready to vote.
I am.
So what's our order?
Our order today is Chris, Barrett, and Jeremy.
Damn.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna say right off the bat, because I already said this is one of the best movies ever made, but Goodfellas is my choice. This is Scorsese at his very best. I mean, I've probably watched Hunt for Red October and Goodfellas maybe about the same amount. Actually, Hunt for Red October I've probably seen more, but Goodfellas is just one of those movies that's just, you can pick that up anywhere. It's so good. Ray Liotta,
I was just going to say that,
who just basically this is his first big Role, slays it.
Yeah, kills it.
And this is what made Ray Liotta what he is today. And yeah, I mean, I guess it's a serviceable performance from De Niro. It's not as showy as normal Scorsese movies are. He's not the main focus of this movie. I think it is laughable in Goodfellas where they're like, he couldn't have been more than 29 at the time. De Niro comes strolling in, 50 years old. Couldn't have been more than 29 at the time. But it's got so much great dialogue to it.
Yeah.
And it's based on a true story, even though I'm sure a lot of it's been blown out of proportion like everything else has.
Maybe by Henry Hill, actually.
Yeah, by Henry Hill himself. Yeah. This was a movie that we're talking about. It takes time to make movies a lot of time. Scorsese wanted to do this for 6 or 7 years, I think. It was something like that. I think he was, he may have been in the middle of The Color of Money or something like that when he started wanting to make this movie. And he wasn't going to direct it, I think, at some point. He just wanted to make it. The one shot through the restaurant is amazing, and you can't say anything.
There's so many classic moments, though. Not just that. There's the the scene where they beat the shit out of that guy.
Oh, I love that.
The helicopter chase at the end where he's freaking out while he's driving.
Oh, and it's got that Henry Nilsson song playing while he's doing it, and it's like the when they're beating the crap out of that guy is that whole lead up to that is amazing. Like, go get your fucking shine box and all that, and like it's one of those things where, the Joe Pesci character in this movie. This is why that, am I funny scene is so good, is because it's a guy who is basically rotten to the core. And anytime he says something like this, you have to take it seriously. And he thinks it's so funny that he think that, that Henry Hill thinks that it's a joke, that it's the serious or whatever. And I'm like, that's so perfect, because this guy has no idea how he looks to the other people in the world.
Yeah.
And it just gives this element of danger to it. Yeah, it's, he thinks it's funny. Everybody else is like, this guy could shoot somebody.
Yeah.
He's done it before. Why not now?
Yeah.
And, but yeah, you're right. I mean, it's really chock full of famous scenes.
Yeah.
It's so many famous scenes in this movie that we could spend 2 hours talking about it.
The best use of the song Layla ever.
Yes, absolutely.
The slow version or the fast version?
That's the fast version.
Oh.
Yeah.
I like both versions.
The Derek and the Dominoes version.
Yes.
All right. Well, Barrett, what's your vote?
My favorite part about Goodfellas is the interplay between those three, Pesci and De Niro and Liotta, when they're at the bar, when they're sitting around like eating at his mom's place and all that. Like, it's just it seems real natural, and I guess that's how Scorsese kind of runs his ship. Goodfellas is 1A for me because I'm going to vote for Home Alone.
Okay.
For the sheer rewatchability of it, for where I just don't see any holes with it. Macaulay Culkin's performance for being 8 to 10 years old. I don't know how he's playing an 8-year-old. I don't know how old he was at the time, and like everybody's just kind of like working together, and Chris Columbus doing his thing. The score, John Williams' score, is one of my favorite scores to listen to just kind of casually.
Is that the one that's
exactly? Yep.
One of those that you don't normally associate with John Williams, and he did it.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think it's great. Every time that I watch it, I enjoy it just as much as I did about the first time too. So I think that's my favorite of 1990.
I did not expect that vote, but I don't have any qualms with it. It's a classic, and we do often weigh cultural impact when we make these decisions. But I'm going Hunt for Red October.
Okay.
Because it's my baby and I want to marry it. I want to call it Squishy, and it'll be my Squishy. I love it. I love it so much that I may be blinding myself to another vote that I should go towards, but this is in my top 5 of all time. I have to vote Hunt for Red October. I'm pretty sure we're going to wrap this up on the second time through, though.
And just talking about Hunt for Red October again, one of the big scenes that always eventually just wraps me up into it is the Jeffrey Jones scene.
Yeah.
Where he's just like, this could park a couple of warheads off the, a couple of 100 warheads off the East Coast. No one would know anything about it until it's too late.
Yeah.
And it immediately wraps you into what you're dealing with in this movie. And I can't say anything against it either, because it's one of my favorites.
We know he's going to end up being right, that they're trying to defect.
Yeah.
But if you try and picture that as a real world scenario, imagine if he'd been wrong.
Yeah.
Like, I could have gone to hell so quick.
Yeah.
Which is why it's so great that he can't convince everybody right off the bat. He gets on the submarine and Scott Glenn's like, who the hell are you, man?
Yeah.
We're going to go with our mission until we are proven otherwise. He gets a lucky break.
Yep.
And it's one of those things that, I mean, if he doesn't get that lucky break, then they're going to
Con sonar, crazy Ivan.
Yeah, exactly.
Which way is he turning, Jonesy? I could quote that movie all day.
That's Courtney B. Vance, who everybody now knows from The People versus O.J. Simpson, but was great in that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, let's go to round 2 then.
I'm also going to say The Hunt for Red October for my second choice. Everything that you just said there. I mean, I've seen this. This is another one of those VHS copies that I wore out. So I'm going to say Hunt for Red October, my second choice.
Yay!
As I mentioned, this is my 1A. My pick is Goodfellas.
Yeah.
And the winner is Goodfellas. There we go. That's my 1A as well.
Yay, Goodfellas.
And then I was going to go Dancing with Wolves, but that's pointless at this point.
Yeah.
Well, Chris's face is a lot different from when we picked When Harry Met Sally.
Yes, that is correct.
There's a bit of a relief on it.
Yeah,
There's a smile there.
There's an aura. Your aura's purple.
Your aura's purple.
Aura's purple. But yeah, a little bit better choice this time. Although, I mean, like I said, When Harry Met Sally's not a bad movie. I just like, it won. How did it win?
It is the outlier on this list, by the way.
Yes.
But God bless us. That's the beauty of democracy.
Yeah.
Today we're going to be talking about songs in movies. Now, in particular, songs that you hear and you can't help but think of the movie and the scene that it's in.
The only important thing these days is rhythm and melody. Rhythm and melody.
And there are a million of those. We're going to name a few, but Barrett, I'm going to let you take this one away because you are our music video sins guy. And won't you start us off?
As Chris said, there's a million of these options, and we'll get to some of the obvious ones. I wanted to start off with a less obvious one. And the song is called The Blower's Daughter. It's by a guy named Damien Rice, a singer-songwriter, an Irish guy. And you've heard it. In fact, I'll play it at some point during this podcast, either at the end or even during this. But it's the one that kind of goes over the refrain of Can't Take My Eyes Off of You. Mm-hmm. And it opens and closes, appropriately enough, a movie called Closer. That was adapted from a play in 2004. Mike Nichols did it, and the play was by Patrick Marber. And I just watched this again last night. It's a really good movie. It falls short of being great, but the performances are terrific, including probably my favorite Clive Owen performance of all time.
Yeah, he's great.
It's Clive Owen, it's Jude Law, and it's Julia Roberts and Natalie Portman. Natalie Portman, to where we had never seen Natalie Portman play this type of role before. And this song really just like hammers home the mood. It really sets the mood straight off, and then it really ties it together at the end. And Damien Rice went on to do a few other songs that were featured. One was featured in Lost, a song called Delicate, and a few other things. But this Blower's Daughter song is really, really terrific. And once you hear it, you'll know it. It was pretty much everywhere in the mid-2000s, but it's perfect in this movie.
I guess I'm just assuming it's my turn. I didn't even look at you before I started talking. That's why are we in the studio if I'm not going to use my eyes?
Yeah.
I'm going to go straight to the cable guy with Want Somebody to Love.
Oh, yes, that's perfect.
And it doesn't matter what version of this song I hear, I will always go straight to the mental image of Jim Carrey going, down by the scaffolding!
Yeah. Him just appearing in the frame when the truth is told.
Love that. I love that movie. I love that scene because it shows, even though it's just a song, it shows how many steps beyond the normal person this character really is, right?
Yeah.
He's going to make it the best damn karaoke jam
ever.
So anytime I hear that, the original, any kind of cover, I always go right back to that.
Yeah, I guess when you first hear these, a lot of these are gonna just sound obvious. I'm gonna have some that are fairly obscure, but Tiny Dancer, Almost Famous.
Good call.
Anytime you hear Tiny Dancer, you have to think about them on the bus, basically kissing and making up, basically
through music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you're not, okay, so first off, you all have to watch Almost Famous. That's required. That's required viewing for everybody.
Yeah, it's great.
But the second part of it is that Billy Crudup. This is in the trailer and everything. Like he's like, I am a golden god. He's totally on drugs and all this other type of stuff. Like he's left his band and nobody knew where he was, and he's saying a lot of stupid things. And they get him on the bus, and somebody just starts singing Tiny Dancer, and then everybody starts joining in as it goes along, and it goes into full throat by the end of it.
Yeah.
It's so great.
It is great. And right before that, he ditches the band, takes a bunch of drugs, and ends up at this house party with a bunch of local teens. Mm-hmm. My favorite line in the whole damn movie. They're sitting around in a circle talking about life and deep shit, and this kid suddenly goes, "Want to see my snake eat a mouse?" The lead singer goes, "Yes."
Yeah, it's Billy Crudup's performance that it's like he's been waiting for someone to ask him if someone were like, "Wow, would you like to see me feed a mouse to a snake?" Yes.
And Frances McDormand is so good in this movie.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to turn this into the wrong thing, but that is an excellent call. That song always does make me think of that movie.
That's a good one. I've got a lot of obscure ones too myself, and I kind of want to sell more movies, but I'm going to go with another obvious one just to kind of get it out there, and that's the Pixies' "Where's My Mind?"
Oh, God, yes.
At the end of Fight Club.
Nice, good call.
And you don't get much more of an associative image than watching those buildings blow up and fall while that guitar riff is
it's almost like the song was just biding its time, waiting for a visual that matched it that perfect.
Yeah. And that was off an album called Surfer Rosa. That was a terrific album, and I had heard it a million times before, but in that context, it immediately adhered itself to that movie. And that's where you hear people discovered the Pixies through that. They discovered, that whole sound because of that. And it was just perfect at the end of that movie, and it's forever associated with it for sure.
This is a perfect the perfect song you brought up, because before we even had this podcast and before we even thought of this topic, I remember this song coming on at a bar somewhere, and I turned to my friend and said, "I cannot listen to this song without thinking of the end of Fight Club, ever." And this person actually had heard the song before Fight Club, maybe not even seen Fight Club, and was just well, it's a great. I've heard this when it came out, and I don't know anything about Fight Club, but I was like, I can't get that out of my head.
A postmark about this: if you listen to our podcasts from episode 1 until I think somewhere around 14 or so, when we got this artist Laurence to do our theme music, who's terrific, by the way. Our music was not the Pixies' "Where's My Mind?" It was actually me doing a cover of a slowed down version of Miley Cyrus's "We Can't Stop." And so that's where that theme music came from for the first few episodes. There was a few people asked about it, so there's the secret.
All right. I have a couple obvious ones. Most of mine are more obscure. The song "Hey Ma" by Cameron. We gonna get it on tonight. Hey Ma. You know that song? I smoke. Me too. Do you know that song?
I think so. What is it? What's the movie?
It's End of Watch.
Oh.
Where Jake Gyllenhaal and Anna Kendrick have begun dating, and they're on a road trip. This is probably why this song is tied
that's
to
right.
Yeah, because
that's right.
they sing it to each other, and she's so adorable making these faces, singing this to him, that every time I've heard that song since, which granted is not super frequent, I go right back to that scene. Nice. And it's just tied to it, probably because, she's one of my celebrity crushes.
Yeah. Isn't she everybody's? I feel so
she kind of ought to be if she's not.
I feel like I'm a part of this huge group, and it's I don't know, it feels terrible that, that everybody knows the magic of Anna Kendrick.
It's like in the mid 2000s where everybody had a crush on Jenna Fisher from The Office.
Yeah. I mean, it's just I want to be a part of an exclusive club. I don't want to be part of the, the one in the millions are part of or whatever. There's another one. Okay. There's actually several from this movie, but Living Thing from Electric Light Orchestra on Boogie Nights.
Nice.
Is forever tied to Mark Wahlberg showing his rubber penis in front of a mirror before the end of Boogie Nights. Especially that little violin that comes in that and it's and then it just once it, I'm a star cuts right to ding 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 ding.
It's so I'm going to cut you off, Barrett, and jump ahead because one of mine is from Boogie Nights, and it's actually God Only Knows.
Oh yeah,
which is I actually emailed Barrett a few weeks ago and said, "Is God Only Knows the greatest song ever written.
It could be.
I think
you made a strong case.
It's a fantastic song, but the way it's used in this context with the montage of all the changes going on and all the characters that we've gotten to know, every time I hear it now, I see those images from Boogie Nights.
Yes.
It's a movie that uses music really.
Oh, it's so good. I have another one written down. And,
Go for it.
But yeah, the God Only Knows thing is the montage, and it's so good. It usually a montage is just like, oh, we just want to get to the next part without having to show you all the other stuff. This really just tells you where everybody is at this moment. And they play almost the whole song. They play nearly the whole song, and it's so great. But another one is Sister Christian from Night Ranger.
Yeah, good.
The Alfred Molina scene. I can't listen to Sister Christian without hearing. He's like, this is my best part right here.
One more Boogie Nights before we leave is I can never hear "Feel My Heat."
Oh, yeah, exactly. feel. Well, and let's not forget, You Got the Touch from Transformers that Mark Wahlberg sings in this. You got the touch. That is beautiful.
Oh my
it's such a beautiful.
You got the power.
But yeah, Paul Thomas Anderson, much like Tarantino, really knows how to pick a song and make it go with a scene extremely well, and Boogie Nights does this better than any of his movies, I think.
For sure. Although Magnolia's pretty good at it too. Now it's strictly Amy Mann music on Magnolia, which I happen to love her.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's got an ear that works. I was even watching Punch Drunk Love the other day, and it doesn't have a lot of soundtrack music. It's score, but most of half that score is noise.
Mm-hmm.
It's not music. And there are scenes where there's clink, 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 and there's dialogue going on, but it's almost too quiet to hear. Because he's trying to throw you off. He's trying to put you in this state of mind that Adam Sandler's character.
I remember the trailer for Punch Drunk Love had the Popeye theme in it. I don't remember if Punch Drunk Love the movie actually ended up doing that. The one that Shelley Duvall sings in the 1980 Robert Altman Popeye is in the trailer. He needs me.
Oh no, that's. I think that's in the movie.
Yeah, is that in the movie? Because I can't remember. I haven't seen Punch Drunk Love since it came out. I actually really liked it. I just haven't been able to find a copy of it anymore.
That's interesting. That's John Bryan that did the music. I figured it was Johnny Greenwood from Radiohead that did his other scores for Paul Thomas Anderson, but it's before that.
Yeah,
interesting. All right,
this isn't even on my list, but you mentioned Tarantino having a good ear for music, and we'll get into a whole other one, but you can't discount how iconic the use of Steelers Wheel Stuck in the Middle with You is for Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah.
And when Michael Madsen is torturing this cop, and he puts on K. Billy's super songs from the 70s. Stephen Wright's announcing it and everything, and he's dancing along, and he's doing like twirls and everything. And he's like, I don't know why I came here tonight, and he's cutting the guy's ear off to this fucking song, and yet somehow this song still gets played, even though it's so associated with cop torture.
Yes.
And that's one that you can't have to think about.
Forever married to Reservoir Dogs. I mean, anytime you hear it, you immediately think Michael Madsen dancing in that warehouse.
Yeah, and the same is true with the one of the more obvious ones on my list was Son of a Preacher Man from Pulp Fiction. And of course, I am the son of a preacher man, so that may be why it stuck with me. But yeah, every time I hear that, I see Uma Thurman dancing around the living room.
Man, Son of a Preacher Man is such a great song just on its own. It's Dusty Springfield, and Dusty Springfield didn't have a lot of hits. And this was her only big real hit. She was a white woman that had the soul, I think she was British, that had the soul of, an African-American woman. And just if you listen to the soundtrack as many times as I did, just hearing all the backing band work, the bass, the drums, everything on that track is great. And it sets up what is kind of a rarity in a Tarantino film. It sets up a very sexy, sensual moment in Pulp Fiction where he's just, I know everybody focuses on the feet, but it's where Uma Thurman is walking across the room and she puts that foot up and it's dirty and everything. And it's so great.
Well, and then she later on dances to Urge Overkill's Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon. Another great use of a song in that movie.
Neil Diamond song turned in by Urge Overkill, Chicago's own.
That's right. For Pulp Fiction, I tried to pare it down a little bit. So I wrote down Jungle Boogie from Kool and the Gang. that song to me, if I ever hear it come on the radio, I immediately think yellow credits of Pulp Fiction is what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, it's like the theme song from The Sopranos.
Yeah,
which is an actual song that I heard on the radio.
Yeah.
And then now all I can think of is Tony Soprano driving.
It's such a good song too.
It is,
and it puts you in the mood for that series very well.
Fits perfect.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go again.
Okay.
Yeah, it's your turn.
Because if we're sticking in the 90s, and a lot of my picks are from the 90s, there's one in a movie called Stealing Beauty. Have you guys ever seen Stealing Beauty?
Yeah, yeah.
So Stealing Beauty was a Bertolucci movie.
Yeah.
With Liv Tyler, came out in 1996.
Jeremy Irons too, right?
Jeremy Irons, yeah. And it's a really fun movie to watch. It's very atmospheric. It's set in the Italian countryside and everything in an artist commune. And it's an interesting story, but like there's this scene where Liv Tyler is going to search for this guy that she thinks she's in love with, and she wants to consummate. She's a virgin in this, and
which Bertolucci's very obsessed with, by the way, in all of his movies.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
It happens again with The Dreamers, but go ahead.
And everybody else in the movie is obsessed with her about getting this poor woman laid.
Yeah,
so she's only 19.
Yeah.
She was only 19. But so as she's walking up, it's this beautiful Italian countryside at dusk, and as she's walking up, it's this slow build of a song from a band called Portishead called Glory Box.
Yes.
And it's kind of what at the time was called trip hop. And Portishead is very sexy music, very electronic, atmospheric music, where if you come home at the end of the date and you put on Portishead, if you can't seal the deal, that's on you. That's your business, because everybody else is really pulling their own weight. But it sets it up beautifully, and the refrain is like, give me a reason to be a woman, and it really, really is tied to that. Now, I listen to that song a million times, but it makes me think of that scene in that movie every time.
There's another scene in that movie that I can't remember the song, or else it would be on this list, but there's another song where she's jumping on the bed and all that. Do you remember what this one was?
Oh, it's a whole song.
Yeah, it's a whole song.
Yeah. Make me real.
Yeah, I
don't know what it was.
That was a pretty good impression of Courtney.
There's a point in Stealing Beauty where you could mistake this for a period piece. Like it's like I don't know what era this is set in or whatever, and then you see it's almost jarring. She's on the bed jumping up and down to this whole song, and it's like, oh, we're modern day. I didn't know that,
With a Walkman.
Yeah, with a Walkman.
I'm going to go with a combo here. Two very, very popular songs that have been taken over by a movie scene and a movie character. Low by Flo Rida or Get Back by Ludacris.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Cruise in Tropic Thunder.
Yeah.
Dancing.
Yes.
Either
Oh
of those
my God,
songs.
totally.
If I hear Apple Bottom Jeans come out of any radio, I'm instantly picturing that character doing his lawnmower dance or what have you.
Yeah.
And it always makes me smile because he's so funny in that movie.
I love that whole end credit sequence that they do there, because especially I imagine the shock on some of the people's faces who watch this when it finally gets to Tom Cruise because there were a lot of people who did not know that was Tom Cruise the whole movie. And I just get a smile on my face when I think about people who were like sitting there through the credits listening to this Ludacris song and everything, and they're like, oh yeah, watching Tom Cruise dance, and then Tom Cruise, and they must have just like gotten hit with a thunderbolt when that happened. But yeah, that's a great one. I love that. If we're gonna
G5 player,
if we're gonna stick with rap, I'm gonna say "Still" by the Ghetto Boys, off the space printer smashing scene. Forever married to that scene.
Yeah.
I did not know what Still was when it first came out. I know it was funny as hell when I first saw it. But when you later listen to Still and you ever hear it now, it's like, oh yeah, they're smashing the printer up. That's what they're doing.
Yeah, Ghetto Boys were featured prominently in that movie. They also had Damn It Feels Good to Be a Gangster
Yes, they do.
in there.
Yeah, that one would always make me think of Office Space for sure. It's not on my list, but damn, it feels good to be a gangster.
Yeah. I wrote another one that I wrote in this sort of genre, even though I guess it's more rock, and it even has rock in the name. Rock Superstar by Cypress Hill. Training Day. Not only the movie itself when they're going into the Spanish part of town and everything, but the trailer itself featured it prominently, and just it's something that I can't hear without thinking of Denzel Washington in the car, like telling Ethan Hawke how it is and all that. It always associates with that.
It's got that great opening, that din, 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 which I think is the opening to the Dan Patrick Show, isn't it?
It is. They do use Rock Superstar.
That was in the heyday of not necessarily rap rock, but rap rock hybrids.
Yeah.
P. Diddy did a rock remix of All About the Benjamins. And, I got a fun one that is a little bit obscure too, but everybody that's somewhere around our age has heard it. It's a song by The Flies called "Got You Where I Want You."
Oh yes,
and it's closely associated with this movie Disturbing Behavior.
Yes,
in 1998.
Oh my God,
and Joshua Jackson.
And Katie Holmes.
Katie Holmes looking really hot in that
movie. Well, it's
Katie Holmes. Am I right?
Katie Holmes. Am I right? Katie Holmes. K. Holmes.
Oh my God, it's a fun song and it's a good song, and like I'd never heard from these guys again. So like this is their one shot. And even the music video had like the Lemmings type behavior where all the classmates are jumping off the cliff together and everything. And it's a great song, except for like the pseudo reggae breakdown in the middle of it. But other than that, it's an awesome song. It's a fun 90s song.
I'm glad you brought up Disturbing Behavior because I wrote one down for this as well. But
for
the trailer of Disturbing Behavior. Harvey Danger's flagpole sitter is always associated with the trailer for Disturbing Behavior. It was funny. I watched that trailer last night and I noticed that the director of the movie is David Nutter, who is best known as a Game of Thrones guy. He directed one of the all-time, most well-known episodes, The Reigns of Castamere.
Oh wow.
But I don't know if he's directed very many other movies other than Disturbing Behavior, but yeah, that was an interesting thing. But yeah, the trailer is like every time I hear flagpole sitter, I'm like, the Disturbing Behavior trailer pops in my mind.
I was back after Scream hit, and anything Kevin Williamson touched or thought of or threw in the trash can got greenlit.
Yeah. Because they had the one, I remember also like towards the tail end there, they had Killing Mrs. Tingle, and then they changed it to Teaching Mrs. Tingle. Or whatever. But everything he did was just like, I don't remember if was he a part of this movie? But
I don't know. I don't remember, it feels so much
but
like
it is a very Kevin Williams-y thing.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go from Tropic Thunder to another Ben Stiller directed movie, Zoolander.
Yeah.
With Wake Me Up Before You Go.
That's number 3, Jeremy.
Wow.
By the way, Ben Stiller directed movies.
Because I did Cable Guy.
You did Cable Guy.
I guess I'm stuck in Ben Stiller right now. But the freak gasoline fight.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. This is so great.
I can't not see the silly, over the top visuals. Of course, all of them except Stiller die in this incident.
Wake me up.
The next scene is a funeral.
But they die sexily, though.
Yes, they do.
They are definitely hot when they die. Every time I don't hear that song a lot, it's kind of I guess an oldie at this point. But when I do hear it, I go right back to that place, and I'm watching them die, burn in a fire.
Gasoline fight. Oh my God. Hey, before you get in, I want to do a couple of trailer songs.
Okay, go for
it. There's two that are most associated with trailers to me, and one is Kanye West doing Jesus Waltz for Jarhead,
which I wrote down.
And I don't think it's even featured barely in the movie, if at all.
Yeah.
But it is such a part of the trailer. It is the entire trailer of this. And oh my God.
Boom, boom, boom.
You get the stomps and everything. Yeah. And everything. Oh my God. It matches the tone perfectly and everything. It made me want to see that movie just based off of that. I think I've actually talked about this on a podcast before, but literally just watching and hearing that song together just made it for me.
Same here. I saw the trailer and I was instantly like, I gotta see that. And then you had Sam Mendes directing Jake Gyllenhaal, and it was like, all right, I'm gonna watch this. Movie was okay. It wasn't great, but it wasn't bad. I actually wrote down Jarhead for that and for the movie itself, Something in the Way by Nirvana.
Yes, I was going the same way.
Yeah, perfect. Use of that, and it's such a dreamlike sequence and everything.
Perfect. Yeah.
Him throwing up sand in the sink and all that other stuff. But yeah, it's so good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, another one, Barrett, you're gonna have to help me and bail me out here because I don't know the name of the song or the artist, but that hip hop rap song from the Deadpool trailer earlier this year. Where,
DMX.
Oh, that's DMX.
Yeah.
X gonna give it to you.
Yeah. I mean, I will never hear that song without seeing Deadpool from this point forward. And that's not a new song. That's
I believe on the it was either Cradle to the Grave or Exit Wounds, one of those movies that he was in. Was the first time I think I heard that. At least it was on the trailer for one of the. I think it was Cradle to the Grave that had that song, and it was associated with that until Deadpool made it like so prominent in everything.
It's another one of those that you just feel like the song was waiting for the movie to come along and be the perfect match of visuals.
It's so great.
I wrote down also for The Naked Gun. What is it called? I have it on the list somewhere. Oh, I'm Into Something Good by Herman's Hermits.
Oh, nice.
It's so funny to me, that song, because this is the romantic montage scene in The Naked Gun where Leslie Nielsen and Priscilla Presley are going around. And during this song, there's a point where you see them coming out of a movie theater laughing their ass off, and like as the camera moves out, you see that they've been watching Platoon. It's one of the funniest jokes I've ever seen. But it actually, at the very end, like when they're like, they're saying their goodbyes and everything, and Leslie Nielsen walks down the street and he kicks his heels and all that. They have like the old MTV, like, credits and everything. Herman's Hermits, I'm Into Something Good, directed by David Zucker.
Hey, speaking of MTV, there was a song and video movie tie-in that would never stop playing on MTV, and that was Bryan Adams' "Everything I Do, I Do for You" from the Robin Hood soundtrack in '91.
Yeah,
and that was everywhere. That was everywhere. It was featured in the theme of the movie. It was in the end credits. It was every tie-in that you would ever hear was that song tying in with that movie. So anytime I hear it, of course you think about Robin Hood and Kevin Costner's failed British accent.
Well, let me tell you, that song also, as somebody who grew up, like I played the piano when I was a teenager, and I also went to a lot of church camps and stuff. And man, if I sat down at the piano and started playing that song, by the time I was done, like 12 girls would like appear out of nowhere. It was like the best song to
I hear the siren song
flirt with women. I can't even kid you. I think it's me, but I'm almost out. You guys have longer lists than me. One I wanted to talk about doesn't really count, but it's a funny story, so I'm going to pretend like it does. That song that Farmer Hoggett sings in Babe, the pig movie. You remember this song? He sings it like 3 times. It's got words. If I had words. So I've never heard that song outside of that movie except one time. My wife and I went on vacation, this is about 8 years ago, and we went to Florida to visit my parents. And one day we went to Epcot. And we were at Epcot, and we went into this theater to cool down, and it was the France section in Epcot. And the movie was sort of like a POV of taking a flight and a boat and whatever through the countryside of France. But what's playing behind all the images is a pipe organ version of this goddamn song.
Really?
And I did a research, and it's originally like some kind of French anthem that has had words put to it several times over the years, but it's this like super regal, like there's a king in the room. And I turned to my wife and I said, "It's Babe the Pig." Like instantly. I mean, and so even though I'm never going to hear this song like in everyday life flipping the radio station, that song is still indelibly tied to that movie forever.
The song's called "If I Had Words."
Yeah, and the French version is on my notes. It's called "Non je ne regrette rien."
Nice.
So there you go.
You have some more, Barrett?
I got one more.
Okay.
And it's a bit of a cheat because I want people to go watch this movie. If you've ever seen a movie called...
That's all you've been doing all day.
I know. All right. I know. It's a movie called Immortal Beloved.
Yeah.
And it's about...
You're going to send people to watch this?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely.
All right.
It was Gary Oldman playing Beethoven.
Yes.
Back in 1994. And it's a good movie. It's like watching Purple Rain. You don't watch Purple Rain for the entirety of the movie. You watch it for the performances.
Okay.
And you watch Immortal Beloved because of the music. And one of the things, they used the London Symphony Orchestra for this, and George Schulte was the conductor. And they nailed Beethoven's Ninth. And the way that they visualize Beethoven's Ninth is they show kind of the childhood of Ludwig van Beethoven. And as the strings are going in this big fugue in the fourth movement, he's running across a field, and it keeps going more and more and more. And then it finally slows down before you get to the Ode to Joy. And he lays down in this pond, and the camera keeps like panning out to where he kind of is one with all the spots in the pond and everything, and it pans out to where so much that it looks like the stars in the sky, and eventually he morphs into the stars in the sky. And this is while all the la da 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 da, it's all this wonderful Ode to Joy stuff, and it's the movie is worth seeing just for that moment. And even if you've heard Beethoven's Ninth a million times like I have, you would probably, if you close your eyes, you may visualize that scene.
Yeah. Well, okay, this is our last one. I don't really want to end on this, but I think I'm going to. Because this song, when I heard it the other day, I was actually out with you at a bar somewhere, and like we heard that 1,000 Years by Christina Perri came on, and that song is always going to be tied to Twilight Breaking Dawn Part 2. And the reason why I know this song so well and I know the credits so well is that I was still working in a movie theater at the time, and I think I was sort of helping out ushers and stuff like that, like doing projection, but then coming down and helping out, because we had when that movie came out, like 10 Twilight Breaking Dawns or whatever were out. And so if you're ever like an usher or whatever, and you go into a movie while the credits are rolling, every credits song that you go into a movie a lot is going to stay with you forever. Like "Can You Feel the Love Tonight" in Lion King is always going to be with me as Lion King, and whatever.
Or that Rage song at the end of The Matrix.
Yeah, the Rage song at the end of The Matrix. There's so many songs that are just like "American Woman" by Lenny Kravitz and Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me. But yeah, 1,000 Years. I think what really sticks with me on this, the song is good. I like the song. But I think what bothered me the most about it is, like, I guess if I were into Twilight, I would find this really awesome and dramatic. They're showing every character and every actor who's ever been in the Twilight series at the end of those credits. But then they show Wendell Pierce, who shows up for like 5 minutes, and I'm just like, oh my God, Wendell Pierce, man. You were in The Wire, man. And now you're in this like montage where you're like one of the 3 black people that were in this entire series. Oh my God, it's so Jesus sad. Christ. But like, 1,000 years, and Wendell Pierce smiling. All right, so yeah, that's. I think we could probably do this again at some point. I think so. Yeah. There's a lot of these, and we skipped over a lot of the real obvious ones. But anyway, let's go on to our Q&A. Question. I got something to say. I want the truth.
I'm listening.
Okay, so a few questions from Twitter that came in. The first one is, what are some of the best director-actor pairs in Hollywood? And I'll throw mine out because you guys have a deeper knowledge of it. My favorite is Soderbergh and Clooney. Now I know Soderbergh has kind of hung it up conceptually here, but I mean they were gold. I mean everything that they did was terrific, from Out of Sight.
How many
to the
films have they made
that.
together? 5?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. The obvious one is DiCaprio and Scorsese, and they're great, and I love when they work together. Off the top of my head, the first thing that came to my mind was Michael Caine and Christopher Nolan.
Oh, yeah.
Because he never doesn't use Michael Caine.
Yeah.
But that doesn't probably fit what you're talking about here. But I'll let Chris talk while I try and think of another one.
You say Scorsese, DiCaprio, and I was thinking Scorsese, De Niro, which is not a current thing going on. I mean, they did it, in the 70s, 80s, and then 90s. But I think that produced their best work, obviously. I mean, Wolf of Wall Street's probably the best Scorsese DiCaprio pairing, but I think if you think about what's the best Scorsese movie and what's the best De Niro movie, it's usually the same thing.
Good point.
That's where I would go with that.
Another one that just came to mind is Tarantino and Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah.
Because I almost went Tarantino and Michael Madsen. I just don't actually really like Michael Madsen all that much. But I like Sam Jackson, and he's in a ton of Tarantino movies.
It's almost getting, with Hateful Eight, like it's almost like he's getting better. Like,
man,
that pair is getting better.
He's the best thing about Django, in my opinion.
Yeah,
and I love Christoph Waltz in that movie, but Samuel L. Jackson steals it for me.
That's a great performance. Like, I don't think a lot of people give it the credit it really deserves. Even though but yeah, that's a terrific performance.
Mm-hmm. Next one. What is the biggest movie trailer sin?
I'm going to go first.
Go.
This is a cheat.
Mm-hmm.
Showing me something that you later cut out of the movie.
Yeah.
And I know it's not your fault, trailer guy. I know that they give you a bunch of footage and you make the trailer and then they're still editing, making decisions, and you get fucked over. But the person who really gets fucked over is me. And if I had a nickel for every time my wife whined to me about, where's the scene from the such and such? It started with Ratatouille. Because in the trailer for Ratatouille, he asks his brother, what are you eating? And his brother says, I don't know. He's like, you don't know what it is, and you're eating it. And that line is not in the movie anywhere, and it pissed my wife off hardcore. So that's not really a trailer sin, but it is, and so I'm going with that for my first answer.
I don't know. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Mine is the cutaway one-liner. It always builds, and then it cuts. And the biggest example of this is the fucking Leslie Jones in Ghostbusters trailer of everything is going, go, cut. I don't know if it's a race thing or a lady thing, but I'm mad as hell.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, we get it. It happens every trailer, and it's just like, all right, we've seen it.
They either do the doom sound and it goes to the cut, or they do the record scratch, which I think is so overused now that I'm just like, no, that's not funny anymore. Record scratch, they do that shit. I don't know. I imagine if I thought about this a little bit longer, I could come up with something better, but I hate it when they have a guy at the end of a trailer or a woman say, I'm going to kick your... And they cut away to the title of the movie or whatever. And it's like, why even bother showing us that? If you're not going to give us the full thing, don't even bother. Just, okay, we get it. It's not funny when you just cut it away like that.
Well, that happened with the Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates trailer, right?
It happens in about 50% of all comedy
We're going to be
trailers.
classy as...
Yeah.
Well, a legit one that I just thought of that I'll throw out there is the if it's a thriller or a horror movie, I know there's some kind of jump scare coming after the credits from the trailer. Like, you showed me the title, you showed me the date, and then I know I'm going to get like a monster sitting up or like a bat screaming at the screen, or there's always something like that, and it drives me crazy.
Yeah. I think we've lost a lot in trailers because Don LaFontaine is no longer with us. We don't get that, that movie trailer voice that's really good anymore, and if you go back and listen to those like 90s trailers and everything, I'm like, I want to watch every single one of those movies. That's the reason why he got paid so much, was because his voice was so, instrumental in movie trailers. But that's a little off of the whether it's a sin or not on the trailers. But I imagine if we really, really, really thought about this more, we could probably come up with a whole bunch. But right, just off the top of my head, I can't think of, because I know there's other things about trailers that
we
bother
still
me.
hit on accurate stuff. I think we're good.
Yeah. All right. Well, if you want to comment, go to SoundCloud, and we're reading those comments and everything. Tell us if we're good or bad or whatever. But that's going to be the SinCast this week. Signing off, this is Chris Atkins and Jeremy Scott and Barrett Scher. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Comment on our episodes on our SoundCloud page. Check us out on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit. And be sure to visit CinemaSins.com.
When the truth is found to be lied, I can't take my eyes off of you. Oh, because you're tiny dancer.
Everything's gonna be fine.
Alright, we gon' get it on tonight. I smoke, I drink, God only knows what I'd be without you. Give me a reason to love you.
Get back, motherfucker, you don't know me like that. Get back, motherfucker, you don't know me like that.
It's fucked me so hard.
It fucked you because just so happened that all the receivers that Jeremy had their best days.
Fuck your receivers.
Fuck them.
Because I'll tell you what, you fucked me. You fucked me with the whole the playoff start like at way earlier than like 1 week earlier. So
fucker.
So
everybody's fucking everybody.
So I was like, you know what? I'm going to give Jeremy AJ Green, and it's going to fuck Barrett in the playoffs.
Well, I got good and fucked.
I can't wait.